Look at my screen. Look at that. Look at that. Look at my screen. Look at my screen. See, I got caught up in the news of the day. I have been live. I have been live on YouTube without even realizing it. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus, because only God knows. I didn't even realize that I should have been live. I have been busy watching. Oh my God. I want teams to know who, oh God, help me. Um uh I'm not sure what I want to do about this, but um y'all are laughing at me, aren't you? Because I just saw something so juicy on Twitter. On Twitter, the ex-Dallas Cowboy player who announced that he's bisexual. And I kid you not, that thing just blew me away. I was reading the story and got caught up and didn't realize that the time was in front of me, because typically I have a timer in front of me, and I kid you not. So forgive me. So this ex-Dallas Cowboy player, ex-Dallas Cowboys, right? Let me go to the story. It's on Twitter, and he announced he's bisexual. So he came out of the closet, and we're all dying. And there are those days that, oh Jesus, through the immaculate. This is what you say. You say, oh Jesus, through the immaculate heart of Mary, I offer you my prayers, joys, and worries this day. I kid you not. I kid you not. It blew my mind, because I got caught up in reading it, because I'm like, well, what the heck happened? Well, what happened is an ex-Dallas Cowboy player, ex-Dallas Cowboys. Everybody knows the Dallas Cowboys play football, right? He says he's bisexual. I don't even know his name. I haven't watched football for the last 2 seasons, so I might be a bit lost on the names. So I'm looking for the story, because it boggles the mind that that happened. I think it's a story on TMZ, right? And I'm looking for it. It was on my other feed, and you know how that is. And sometimes your feed needs to be updated. But seriously, so football and boys and girls, okay? I don't know what to say. I'm done. I have nothing to say. I simply have nothing to say. I'm not going to wade into that conversation. I'm not going to go into that conversation at all, because what's there to say? It's on TMZ, I think. It's not on Time. It's on TMZ. But what do you say to something like that? I mean, do you say anything? No. You leave him, let him discover his sexuality. He says he wants the world and all the players to know who he is. Okay. So we got the message. And there is silence on the gridiron, right? Because it's like, okay, how many more of you are going to come out of the closet now? That's probably a start for everybody else to rush out and say, oh, me too, right? Right? Isn't that the truth? Isn't that what it is? I'm looking for it. I'm looking for the story for the ex-Dallas Cowboy player who says he's bisexual. It's the craziest thing ever. And it makes you, here's a story. I kid you not. You all didn't believe me. Here's the story. This is the ex-Dallas Cowboy player who says that he is bisexual. His name is Ryan Russell. He announces he's bisexual, and he wants the world to know that he is bisexual. I kid you not. And he wants people to know who he is. It's his truth. He's walking in his truth. His truth is he's a talented football player, a good writer, a loving son, an overbearing brother, a caring friend, a loyal lover, and a bisexual man. I guess we needed to know that that was going to come, right? So he's 27 years old. He was a fifth round draft pick back in 2015. He's currently a free agent. And he says, out of love, he wants the next team to sign him, valuing him for what he does and knowing who he truly is. Well, good luck to that. He wants to live his dream of playing the game and being open about the person. And he's always been okay. He went public with his relationship with his boyfriend, who wrote of the NFL player on his Instagram page. This man is a top headline. And as my boyfriend, I couldn't be more proud. So he sat out the entire 2018 season with a shoulder injury. And I suspect he's going to have a few more seats. And I want to read the comments because the comments are live, right? The comments are live. You're gay, not bisexual. Who really cares? Because most of you black guys are gay. Oh, most blacks are gay. Oh my God. It came out. You're gay, bro. There's no such thing as a bisexual man. Oh, Jesus. Through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. I swear to you, it's Friday morning. And I don't know what to do about that. And I thought we were just going to be living without fear, living fearlessly. And I guess that's what he's doing. He's living without fear and living fearlessly, right? Living without fear and living fearlessly about coming out of the closet as an NFL player. But the truth is, are you all really surprised? Tell me, are you all really surprised? No, because if 3% of the U.S. population are gay, then chances are there are more football players, basketball players, baseball players, tennis players, and all the balls that we play who are bisexual or gay. Frankly, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe in bisexuality. I believe that you are what you are. I just don't get the bisexual thing. I don't get it. I don't see how you can say you enjoy having sex. No, I don't think so. I think the one that you strive for is the one that you really are. And especially with men, if you're having sex with a man and there's only two ways a man is going to have sex with a man, either orally or in his anus, you're gay. So walk in your truth and embrace it, that this is what you are, and deal with it. Okay? It is what it is. I believe that you need to be, I say this, to thine own self, be true all the time. Be true to yourself. Be true to who you are and what you are, and you live at peace. It makes no sense pretending. Makes no sense trying to be something that you're not, or trying to fit in a box, or trying to live a certain way that you are not. We've seen now over time that does not work. And so people are emerging in their sexuality or in their sexual choices and are claiming that this is what they are. Sometimes I think people want attention, right? They already were. Most people around them probably knew, but they want extra attention. They want to be the focus of attention. They want people to say stuff about them. Maybe he's hoping he'll get some support, from the players union and other players who might be gay, who will come out and so on. But just watch those endorsements drop. America is not ready for it yet. They're not going to, right? Because they still want to project the image that this is a He-Man macho game filled with all macho male players who, when they're done, they just go to the bar and get some women and drink beer. That's the image they want to project. Meanwhile, there are people who want to have sex with men. I probably do right there in the locker room. So I don't know what the big deal is. Everybody knows it happens, right? What a way to start the Friday. Right. So I want to talk about living without fear. And it struck me because we have been under attack. Since the beginning of August, we had 2 mass shootings. And every day when you read the stories, they have prevented another 5. Suddenly, the narrative around it is changing because they're trying to desensitize the American audience and desensitize the sensitivities of people who might be believing that another mass shooting is imminent. I mean, we had a big scare in Times Square where a car backfired and everybody thought it was people firing into crowds. We have seen other episodes that have emerged. So I want to talk about living without fear and how to live fearlessly. I don't believe that anyone should live with fear. It is my hope that all of us who have had experienced some sort of fear have learned to walk past it and move through it. There are some obstacles, some roadblocks that we encounter that we simply can't move around. We simply have to go through. There are some things you just have to go through. And when you encounter those, especially those that are riddled with fear, for instance, if you woke up this morning and you're in fear that by the end of the day, there's going to be a mass shooting. You might have fear that you have to go to the grocery store, but they might do something there. Or it's date night. Friday and Saturday nights are date nights. Everybody goes out, right? People want to go out and have a date. And now we're like, really, maybe we should just stay home and date at home. Or maybe we should go over to our friend's house or neighbor's house and just organize a date night somewhere. Because going out in public is riddled with fear. And we're all reacting to fear, not just us. I mean, even when you look at the security forces, they're just as jumpy as the rest of us are. They're telling us to be vigilant, but don't be afraid. Well, what they're trying to say is we're just as afraid as you are. Who wants to be the first responder to be called to the scene of a mass shooting where a number of people have been shot? No one wants to do that. Have you ever thought about what happens to them when they're called and they have to show up at these scenes, right? Who wants to live in fear? Who wants to be riddled with that kind of fear? And yet there is fear. Eleanor Roosevelt said it best. She says, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. There are some things that come as a matter of course. If you live long enough, you deal with it. Years ago, when I was growing up, there was a lot of bombings in England, right? Because of the fracas between Northern Ireland and England. So there were always bombs going off. I mean, the airwaves were just riddled with what they referred to at that time as domestic terrorism. It just seemed like, and for years I said, I'd never go to England because of it. I'd never, what we call the UK, right? And so I said, I'd never go there because of it. And then of course it was Israel. When Israel used to have all kinds of attacks because of their strife with Lebanon, and Beirut was a bombed out place, I said, I'd never go to Israel. I said, there's some places in the world that I don't know if I'd ever go to because I was riddled with fear that if I were to go to those spaces and go to those places, that something would happen. There were 2 places in the world that I was pretty sure nothing would ever happen. You want to know where those were? The United States and Canada. I was pretty sure that nothing would ever happen here or could ever happen that would inflame my sense of fear. And this is, I think maybe the most dangerous place or the most unfamiliar place or off the wall place I ever went to was South America. I drove through went to South America. We did a tour and went through some places. And okay, so I didn't go off the beaten track and go in the once when we were in Bogota, I went off the beaten track and went to the non-tourist areas. And I was like, no, get me back on the main street because I became fearful. I was like, I'm not sure. These are the places that if something happens, how do you account for it, right? You became aware that you were a foreigner in a country where you don't speak the language and you're not familiar with I want to go to Scotland. Thank you. I'll come to Scotland. I know you're safe over there. Scotland. I've never thought of it, but I will now, right? And so there are some places that to this day, I am not sure that I want to visit simply because of fear. So there is that fear. But then, of course, there are some people who fear getting sick. It's that paranoia that drives all of us to eat right, drink more water, and then you pee all night. Can I get a witness? right? So they tell us to drink 8 glasses of 8 ounces, 8 ounce glasses of water per day. Wait, you know what happens at nights? You need a funnel from yourself to the bathroom because you will be up all night. So I toned it down because I got tired of it. Because for some reason, I would drink as much water through the day, 2 or 3 bottles of water per day, and I wouldn't be peeing as much during the day. But come nighttime, oh my God, I said, no, this is enough. So they tell us to drink as much water. So I flushed my system out, right? Then in paranoia about getting sickness or disease, they say go and eat more veggies and so on. Well, I ate more cabbage and it made me gain water weight because most veggies have a higher composition of water. Live without fear, anyone? So I had to say, well, wait a minute. I'm going to take my vitamins and I'm going to eat, but I'm going to do everything in moderation. So I'm not going to eat more veggies than I need to because the end result of it is that eating veggies makes you bloated. So I had constant water weight. So I couldn't fit into my clothes, or when I put them on, I didn't like how it looked. And I'm like, that's not me. The rest of me looks normal, but my tummy area just looked like because I was eating more and more veggies, right? Live without fear. So I said, okay, Harriet, what are you going to do? I'm going to have to live without fear, right? And just do everything in moderation. And then, of course, there's some people, if you are a person of color in America, you fear being pulled over by the police. That's a real fear that a lot of people have, especially young Black males. So if you have a son who is under 30 or under 40, I think, you literally find yourself having the conversation with your son or your male relatives under 40 about how to interact with the police if you get pulled over. I kid you not. If you're Hispanic, the same is true, but we don't know what happens with Hispanics because they never talk. They don't talk to the rest of us. They don't talk to anybody else. They sit in their corners and they don't talk. And so we don't know what their story is. They don't say anything. That's how Hispanics are. They just kind of just sit over there and they don't really say anything. So we don't know, right? When other stuff is going on, and I kid you not, I have that issue with Hispanics because when stuff is going on with other people of color, they don't come out in support. They don't come out in support when Blacks are being targeted. They don't come out in support, right? They just sit over there and they don't say anything. And now you want us all to go demonstrate because kids are in cages? Are you kidding me? Really? Well, how did those kids come here? Because for the rest of us who are Black, who come from the Caribbean or Africa, we had to pay our way. Go down to the U.S. Embassy, pay the fee, get a stamp in your passport, then come over here. Then go pay the lawyers so you can be processed. But you want to swim over a river, jump over a bridge, and get here and don't have anything to show, and then expect the rest of us to say, hey, ho. And for the rest of us, we have to go through the process, stand in long, long lines, wait days, weeks, months, and years. Nah, there's got to be equity here. So they're drawing the lines now and saying there are borders. And they're saying that's the border. I agree with that. Put the bloody border up. You got to have a border. Let me ask you guys this. Talk about living without fear. Do you really want to live in a country that doesn't have a border? Think about that. Do you know we have a border between us and Canada? You never hear about it, do you? No? Why? Because that border is enforced, isn't it? Right. So you ever been to Canada? There are big walls and stuff that stop you, that say, hey, you're entering Canada. Let me see what you got. Who are you? Where are you coming from? Let me see who you are. Right? So why is it if you're coming from Central America and you want to come into the U.S., we're just supposed to say welcome and let everybody come in? As far as I'm concerned, I want to know who you are. When I came here, they wanted to know who I was. So they stamped my passport and they gave me a form to fill out that they put into their permanent record. So they know I am here. I want to know who is here too. Don't you? Right? So put the border up. What's the fight about? There's no fight. Is there a fight? There should be no fight. Have you ever been anywhere else in the world and not seen a border. Show me a country on this planet that does not have a border. Why are we fighting about a border? All we need to do is say, hey, you got to have some documentation to come in here. Nobody should have a fight with that. So I don't know what my brothers and sisters who are Hispanic are talking about. They never stand with us. When Black lives were mattering, did they stand with us? Did they fight with us? No, they didn't. They were silent. It's as if we were the only ones who were in the fight. So now you want me to talk about your fight? Seriously? Seriously. I have to think about that, right? Do it the same way. And I have asked, I've said, well, people want to know, why is it that you go through this process to come here? And they said, well, where we're coming from, it's really bad. And I'm like, well, where I was coming from, I was running from an ex-husband who was going to kill me. If I had stayed there, he had the power. He had everybody in his pockets. He could have done it. But I had to go, like I said, down to the U.S. Embassy, pay the fee, got a visa stamped in my passport, bought a ticket, got on a plane. And when you land here, they give you a form to fill out called an I-94 because you're a non-citizen. So they have a record and you got to keep it in your passport till you leave. When you're leaving, they stamp your passport again. When you're leaving, they take your I-94 form so they know that you've left. They have the record. So you all want to just jump over a bridge and swim across a river, and it's my problem. Are you kidding me? And people from the Caribbean and Africa say, amen. The rest of us had to pay a price. I don't understand that, right? And you want me to live without fear, but you don't want me to have a border. It's like living without fear. Okay, so I'm going to put some roadblocks in. I'm going to make sure that I have a door to my house. I'm going to keep that door locked, right? Because I want to live without fear. So I'm going to put an alarm system in. Am I going to leave my door open, unlocked, untended, without a security system, and then tell my residents, the people in my home to live without fear? Tell them that there are no borders. There are no obstacles to prevent others from coming in. No. Tell me about your car. Does your car have a chirp chirp? I have 2 cars. You have 3. Some of you have 5. I drive past your houses in the suburbs. Have you driven through America's suburbs? People have like 6 cars parked up. All right. All the kids come home, plus the grown ones, right? And do you leave your car unlocked? Not anymore. None of us do that anymore. Once upon a time, you'd feel safe in your neighborhood, so you wouldn't. Not anymore. Everybody puts some kind of roadblocks. We've got to live without fear. But that's not even the fear I'm talking about. And yes, what happened in El Paso was very bad. That's white nationalism. Yes, we've talked about that. That's wrong. That's targeting a group of people. But again, where's the Hispanic voice? Where are the Hispanic numbers? Why aren't you rising up? Why aren't you saying something? Why aren't you doing something? The rest of us, we are to fight your battles for you. But when we have a battle, we're left alone. You know, I never really looked at it from that point of view. I just, like everybody else, was catatonic with fear, like, oh my God. And then my youngest daughter said, think about it. When you came here, Mom, didn't you have to go through the process? Why shouldn't everybody else walk through the process? And I thought about it and I said, well, if we're going to level the playing field, level it with everybody. And she said, but where were they when Black lives were mattering? When we were fighting about Black lives and we were having this conversation? I'm pretty sure that Hispanic men get pulled over and are profiled. Do you hear about it? No. Silent. Why? Why are you silent? But you want me to be engaged in your fight. But you got to come over here and walk in my shoes, right? And this is how I know that we all need to live without fear, because for many years I lived in fear, right? I was married to a man who was a monster. He beat me up. The dude even wrote a letter to immigration to say that I can't leave the country. I kid you not. Which rendered me helpless for 11 to 15 years. I think it was a total of 15 years by the time it was sorted out. I kid you not. The man made me live in fear, and it worsened every time I attempted to leave. He did something, and he did something. It wasn't enough just for him to beat me up. It wasn't enough for him to make sure that I didn't have access. I couldn't call anybody. This is a dude who would leave home. But you remember then when we had cordless telephones? Y'all remember that? Well, he used to unplug the phone from the wall, put it in his car. Then he would drive out of the garage and lock the door. And I had to live in fear. Those were the days when I learned that fear is false evidence appearing real. I said to myself, now comes, look at this. What this man wants to do is for me to live as if there is not a God, as if there's not a whole world, and as if there isn't a future where I would be free. I imagined a future where I lived completely fearless, where I lived completely without fear. But instead, if you looked at my circumstances dictated that I had to be in fear. I think a lot of people get off on you being fearful. They like to ram it down your throats. It's like, I don't know about you, but I'm one of those persons who drive within the speed limits because it's one thing I don't like. I don't like seeing blue lights behind me because nobody likes being pulled over. I have learned, even lawyers and judges I've talked to, everybody goes, uh-oh, because it can go south pretty quickly, right? And you don't have much room to maneuver at the point of being pulled over. The guy who pulls you over or the girl who pulls you over is in charge. So one of the things that I try to do, that's one fear I live with. I just drive the speed limit. I drive with the speed of traffic. So whatever the traffic is doing, right? Because of that. But outside of that, the only thing I fear are little people, little children. They immobilize me. Little children, when my youngest daughter was young, somebody once asked me, do you fear anything? He was a very powerful man, right? And I said, yeah, I fear a little person because whatever they say, I have to do. And I can't say no, even if it is ridiculous, because they expect me to do it. And he found it hilarious because he thought I was completely fearless, because I would just go up to him and say, you're wrong in executing this. You shouldn't do this. And he used to say, I'm the bishop. Nobody tells me what to do. And I'm like, well, that's where they're all wrong. Somebody needs to say that this could have been done a better way. It would work out for everyone else, right? Living without fear. When I was young, my grandmother used to tell me that don't fear anybody. Because she used to say everyone in the mornings gets up and goes to the toilet. And she says, if you can imagine them sitting on the toilet, it will help you. And my grandfather used to say that every man has to put his pants on one leg at a time. That kind of humbled people, and in my perspective. So it made me sit across from people and be completely fearless. You got to understand that having endured extreme violence, nothing really moves me. If violence is the thing that moves me, I'm like, okay, I'm so not affected by that. And I kid you not, I was the one who found myself sitting outside a boardroom. Most of us have been there, and you're on the agenda, but you're not in the room. That's not a comfortable feeling. That will move me a little bit. I had to learn to deal with that too, right? I told myself, I became comfortable with it because I used to be the one in the boardroom with other people's names on the agenda. So I guess when it was my turn, it made me uncomfortable, right? But we have to learn to live without fear. We live in a day and time today when everything around us is crazy. Have you guys noticed? Everything is crazy. I mean, just follow the 24-hour news cycle. They repeat the most negative stories that are totally out of scope. I mean, we all have issues going through red lights, right? How many of you have noticed that the lights are not normal anymore? That as fast as you go through, the green changes to yellow, and the yellow has 2 seconds before it's red. So you fear getting a ticket. So people are now beating the red light and are having more accidents. Because as soon as it turns yellow, it used to give you a delayed 30 seconds so you could comfortable make it through without it going to red. Now your green and it's yellow and then it's red because they want to make money writing tickets. So my daughter is driving, and she said to me, well, if that happens, I said, what we do, we go to court. And then I'm going to take the system on and ask, if you're going to make profit off that, then I want to make some money too, but you're not going to make a profit off me getting a ticket. I said, if they write you a ticket for that, take the damn ticket. Let's go to court and duke it out down there and ask what the hell is going on. So, do you see what I'm saying? So some of the things that we fear are where we're not holding people accountable. It's like you have a relationship, you're married, and you suspect something is going on that your partner or your spouse isn't telling you. Whether they're cheating or not, you don't really know for sure, but you know they're not doing something that is forthright and that is good for the relationship, right? What do? Are you going to live in fear that whatever they say is going to affect you, or are you going to confront it? You have to confront it. You can't live in fear because it's going to come out one way or another. I watched a show recently where a woman found herself in the same conundrum. It's called Working Moms. It's on Netflix. And she suspected something was going on with her husband because he would leave in the, late at night and said he would be right back. He was going out with the boys. Then, the conversation changed. Like he said, well, I told you I was going to go out for a little bit. So she never really said, well, where are you going at this hour of the night? What's this? And then he would come back in an hour or two later, right? So she wasn't paying attention as much as she should because she was working. It's family. They're dealing with their, how family is. You're dealing with the children, blah, blah, blah. Well, she caught him with the nanny, kissing the nanny, but he didn't see her. So they were at a party. She saw him with the nanny. And so she went home to debate whether or not she was going to confront this. So she role played in her head what would happen when she confronted it. And at the end of the role play, she slowly went up there. She was nervous and shaking because now you're going to ask him a question that you already know the answer to. And whatever his answer is going to be, you're still going to walk away because the evidence, what you saw, was staring you in the face. She was so fearful. She was shaking and nervous. But then she sat down and she had to confront her worst fear. Sometimes you have to confront your worst fear. Years ago, I was in an office. I worked for a company. And one of the sales reps was a high value player, right? I mean, she could sell a snake. She could charm the pants off a snake. I mean, she was that good. And I asked her this day, I remember asking her, I said, what do you fear? And she said she role plays in her head the worst case scenarios that could happen. You know what happened? One of her worst case scenarios was what? Losing her father. Guess what happened? Within a short time, her father died. And I remember saying to her, do you think that you shouldn't have feared that you shouldn't have? And she said, on the contrary, I'm glad I confronted it. Because she says, now that I have to confront one of my worst fears, I am learning how to walk through it. And that's when she told me the story of how she got divorced. That was the same thing with how she got divorced. And I don't know why we walk around on tentacles. Sometimes, to be honest, we're just being human. Can I just be real? Are we human? We're just being human. It's normal and it's human to not want to deal with the stuff and be confronted by the stuff that makes life. It's normal, right? It's normal and human to not want to deal with some of these stuff because they're tough. Who wants to go confront a story where you have to confront that your marriage is failing, right? Who wants to, you hear rumors at work that they're going to close the company, but your whole life is dependent on this. Your children, your mortgage, your family's welfare, your health insurance. Who wants to go confront the boss to hear that, yes, we're going to close in 2 weeks, is out the door. You hear rumors that they're about to shelve your entire department. Who wants to confront that? And the worst one, you're going to be fired. Who wants to confront that? We're human. It's human to want to be comfortable and to live with some measure of safety and security. But unfortunately, our world is not wired like that anymore. There are people who feed on our fears. Be careful of that. One of the things I suggest doing is turn off the 24-hour news cycle. It's constant. It makes us hypervigilant. Suddenly, everybody is different. This is us all the time. We feel like we have to be constantly on watch. And it has terrorized our minds. We live in this constant hypervigilance, right? We have become traumatized. We have what I refer to as associative trauma from observing other trauma. It's just like mass shootings. Man, you can't tell anybody to go to a mall anymore. The malls are empty. I was driving past the mall this morning and the Sears sign is down. That was sad. Sad, isn't it? Sears? Seriously? Where am I going to buy my new refrigerator and stuff? And my washing machine, right? Okay? And I kid you not, so we won't go to a mall. We might go to dinner, but we're like, where? Where are we going? Where's that? Let me think about it, right? We definitely don't go to the movies anymore. It's like, man, have you been in a movie theater? There is no way out in that stuff. How come we never thought about that? So now we have become fearful. So our homes, just like The Purge, have you watched the movie The Purge? Our homes have become what? Mass central. Our homes have become security central. There are bars over windows. In some places, if you don't have bars, people have all kinds of stuff. You have cameras. You guys ever thought about that? Oh, they don't have your robe on. Lucky. But the cameras are rolling. So your family can't walk around freely at home anymore because the cameras are always on. We live in fear. We totally live in fear. Oh no, I'm not driving out at 9 o'clock. No, I'm not going anywhere. I get home by 9 o'clock. We live in fear. Football season is about to start. Are we going to go to the game? I just got invited to the U of M games. I will be going to the U of M versus Michigan State game. I'm going. But do you know that I don't like large stadiums? So I just hope before I even accept the offer, I'm actually going to check out where will you be seated? Because if you're going to be seated up in the bleachers, I ain't doing that. I'm just letting you know right now, it's not for me. Right? You got to be seated down front. If anything, I can lay out on the thing and roll off somewhere and hopefully drop on the field. But the field would be an open field. No, probably not. No. You know what? Let's just watch it from home and tailgate from home. Do you see? Living in fear. We live in fear. We live in fear. I have a shelter for human trafficking victims, and I cannot begin to tell you how traumatized these individuals are. They are severely traumatized. They live in the constant fear of law enforcement. I could not believe, seriously, people, listen to me. They would be in my car and I would take them out. And they would see a police cruiser way over on the other side of the road. And they would duck. And I'm like, you can't do that in my car. They will think something is going on. Or I pull into a parking lot and a man pulls up, just some regular dude. And the way the two girls would act is as if, and I'm like, we got to work on this. We cannot live in fear. Right? I lived in fear. Do you know that just before I became aware how fearful I was, just before my marriage ended, I was married to my ex-husband, and I worked in a facility, in a firm where there were not a lot of black men. There were probably 2. Everybody else was just white. And I remember one day coming out of the parking lot, and this tall black man was walking towards me, who worked there, whom I should be familiar with. And when I saw him, I ran into the building. Do you know he was offended, as he should have been? And I had to apologize. And he said, no, don't explain. He said, don't explain. I get it. I know exactly what's going on, and I'm sorry. We've got to live without fear. We have become so traumatized that we see young people now, white or black. If you go to the mall and you see a young white male and he has on long black trench coats, you're out of there. Like, Godspeed, I'm out of there. This happened to me like about 2 years ago. I was at 12 Oaks Mall and there were two of them walking around. And all of a sudden, those of us who were in that perimeter, black, white, everybody looked at one another like, and one of them happened to be an undercover, police officer, off-duty police. He went and dealt with it. He said, hey, do you tell he's going? No. With the rest of us just out of there. I was done. Do you see what I'm saying? We are living in fear. So how do we live without fear? Well, we have to confront the worst case scenario. It makes no sense. You cannot let it dominate you. It's like if you have never driven a car before, you live in fear. Chances are you are afraid of driving because you've seen collisions and all sorts of things happen when people drive. So you are living in fear, right? But the only way you're going to overcome that is what? Get behind the wheel. And then you find out that it doesn't happen as often as you think it does. Do you see what I'm saying? We all have to live without fear, right? And what I have from what I have seen is that for most of us, it seems to me that what we do is we tend to make sure it's sort of like we go through these scenarios where we role play. You ever, can I just ask y'all, maybe y'all are tired, so when you go to bed at night, you just go to sleep. Lucky you. There's some of us who actually sit there and our minds are going 100 miles a minute. In the last week, I need to shut my mind down because it's out of control, right? It's totally out of control. I need to stop thinking and imagining worst case scenarios. I don't know if it's because 9/11 is fast approaching, right? And I think I'm still sitting like kind of quiet. Is anybody hearing anything? How come they're not saying anything, right? It's Labor Day coming up. There are state fairs and all kinds of stuff happening around here in Metro Detroit. What are we going to do, right? And so you start imagining all kinds of worst case scenarios. You have to take hold of that. You have to tell yourself, I am going to be okay. Whatever that okay is going to be like, you have to tell yourself that. You have to tell yourself that God is in control and it's going to work out. No matter what it is. If you're faced today with a job situation that you fear by the end of the day, they're going to make you not have a job. Okay, so there are savings, there's unemployment, and there are other jobs that you can get. Why live in fear of that? If your spouse is likely to say, I don't want to be married to you anymore, I don't want you anymore. And there are 7.2 billion people on the planet. And you're looking at me like, Harriet, that's as easier said than done. Yes, it is easy to say it, but it is also true. What's the point in living in fear of someone asking you to leave? You haven't paid your rent in a while and you fear the landlord is going to put you out. Well, that's a reality, right? Whatever the circumstances that made you lost your job, whatever, you have to make choices. You have to start making plans, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So we live with some of these things that we fear, when we really should think about the alternatives to work through them. I myself have lived like you. I have lived in situations that were not comfortable all the time. I mean, I lived with an ex-husband who threatened to beat me up. He even told me, y'all, that if I went back to Jamaica, that he was going to come there and beat me up and there was nothing I could do about it. So guess who never left? To this day, you're damn right about that. I'm like, and he's deceased now about 6 years? And I am still like, let's take a rain check. Every time the subject comes around, I'm like, let's do a rain check. My family have been very, very patient with me so far, but I suspect their patience is running out. Right? And that's because for so many years I lived in fear of that reality. And so I had to learn to live without fear. And how I dealt with it was, well, it's not going to happen because I'm not going to go. And when he died, I said, well, there it is. It's never going to happen. So now it's my choice. I probably have what is called associative trauma associated with that event from happening. I'm just being real with you all, right? But do I live in fear of him beating me up again? No, not only because he's dead, but because when they locked him up, that ended that, right? The neighbors had to call the cops and let the cops come and take him away because it was too much. It was overdone, right? It was too much. No one should live in fear. No one should live in fear. Nope, nobody. So this weekend is the perfect example. Monday is Labor Day. I am taking a break. You are taking a break. We will all be just chilling like a villain, right? We're all going to have the last barbecue of the summer. I probably should roll out my grill now that I think about it, right? We're going to have last barbecue of the summer. We're going to hang out with friends and family. We're going to go visit. We're going to get ready for back to school, do all the back to school stuff. Thank God it's my last year. Hallelujah. Took 17 years, but it's over. It's my last year of getting back to school done. My daughter will be in college next year. And this mama is like, amen, right? So and then you know what we're going to do? We're just going to chill. You are not going to live in fear. You're going to go out to Arts, Beats, and Eats, and you're not going to worry about firecrackers or anything else going off. You are not going to live in fear. Nope. You're not even going to think about it. So what if it happens? Okay, so they're going to just do whatever they do, and you're just going to walk through it. You see what I'm saying? Confront it in your mind. It's done. It's over. You're not going to live in fear that you won't have a job come Tuesday when you go back to work. You're not going to live in fear that when we take our children to school Tuesday morning, my daughter is driving, so she'll be driving herself to school. I plead the blood of Jesus. I literally am praying every day. Pray for me. Stretch your hands out and pray for me. I kid you not. It's the worst thing that can happen to a parent is putting a child behind the wheel of a motor vehicle. It's insane, right? She's going back to school, and millions of other children have already gone back to school. Millions of parents have to send our kids off to school. We are not going to live in fear. You might be facing a foreclosure on your business. You might have run out of all your letters of credit, all your lines of credit that the bank has given you, and you are facing that you might have to close your business. You are not going to live in fear. It's going to work out one way or another. You come to that place where you tell yourself, this is the fork in the road. I either go this way or I go that way, but I'm not going to sit here and let this fear immobilize me. Fear is crippling. Listen to me very carefully. I stayed in a bad marriage longer than I should have. Maybe that's why today, as soon as a relationship goes south, I just get out of it because I learned a very valuable lesson. I stayed in a bad marriage longer than I should have. It was 13 years too long. And I stayed in it because I feared that I would be a single parent. I feared that I wouldn't have anyone to talk to. I feared just being categorized as divorced and single with a child. And look what happened. I stayed in it for so long, he almost killed me. Do you see what I'm saying? That's how crippling fear is. I sat in the fear and was crippled by the fear. I never did anything about it. I sat in that fear, crippled by the fact that that man had written a letter to immigration, and if they executed on that letter, I would never see my child again. Instead of stepping out, the minute I stepped out, well, I found a counselor who got me a lawyer. And when we looked at it, I nearly cried, y'all, when they told me there was something called the Violence Against Women's Act that my case fitted under. I literally sat there and cried buckets for all the years of fear that I lived in that could have damaged my body, that could have damaged my mind. And instead, of moving forward. I sat immobilized by fear. Do not let fear cripple you. You gotta go. If you gotta go, you gotta go. I had to tell myself I had to get out of it. No, I looked around. I mean, it was a comfortable, you know how life is. It was a nice way of life, right? Who want, you think about it. Most women stay in these situations because of fear, right? You don't want to leave it. I could have a maid on call. I had a house with a swimming pool, and we lived in a gated community, and I never had to worry about, finding money to do anything. But I lived in fear. And I had to ask myself, really? This is the sum total of my existence. Many women today are living in fear of what is on the other side of that divorce. You stay in marriages that are bad. You stay in relationships that are bad. And for men too. Men are fearful that child support and alimony payments is going to consume them and render them in poverty. You don't want to find yourself, you're 60 and you wake up and you live in an apartment next to some guy who smokes and drinks or whatever. And you're like, I don't want to live like that. So you stay in a bad marriage. Many of us live in fear. You won't even take a chance and go relocate to another city. You live in fear that you may not meet anyone new, or you may not see anyone, or you would give up the people you have known all your life. So you stay in that little community of narrow-mindedness, that little closed-minded community, and you don't bring anyone else in because you're terrified that if someone else comes in, they're going to change the dynamics of the group. I might expose you to new ways of thinking that is going to change everyone else around you. Step out of that fear. Right? Step out of it. You can't live in fear. I am the living, walking witness of what living in fear was like. I stayed in a bad marriage longer than I should have. He could have. By the grace of God, I'm walking free today. I am normal today. I am free because I had to trust God and step out of it. Do you know what that was like? I literally sat, in the kitchen, you have this little island where you have your files and your computer and the phone, and that's where you run the household from. I sat there that Sunday in November, and I asked myself, is this, because I knew once I made this phone call, it was going to set in motion a series of events. But then what was the opposite of that? Living in fear that he was going to do it again and again and again. Do you see what I'm saying? You can't live in fear. If you go to the doctor and they give you a bad report and tell you that you have 6 months to live, do not let that immobilize you. If they tell you do whatever you want to do, eat whatever you want to do, best believe that's what you should do. Go out, do what you want to do, and eat what you wanted to live as if there's no tomorrow. You'd just be surprised. The 6 months they gave you might turn out to be 6 years because you live without fear. Fear immobilizes. Fear is crippling. Fear prevents us from advancing and moving forward. Fear. Live without fear. All of us, I implore you, I encourage you to. I had to step out on a limb. I had to step out of the comfort of that home to experience living without fear. As long as I stayed in there, I was going to be beaten black and blue. Yes, I probably would have all my creature comforts taken care of. I used to call it my gilded cage. Yes, it was 4 bedrooms with 5 bathrooms. Yes, it was. Yeah, nah. And I had to step out of it, and I have never been happier. Do I think about it? In the initial stages, I used to be like, are you sure this is the right decision to make? But as time moved on, I was confident. I said, well, this is just a new way to live. I have to figure out how to live in this new way, and we're going to deal with this until it turns around. Amen. Live without fear. That was my worst fear. But I learned that I could live just like that. You perhaps need to confront your worst fear. And you will find out that it ain't all that I thought it was going to be. None of the horrible things I imagined would happen. But how would I have known if I had stayed in that narrow little way of thinking? being influenced by narrow-minded, closed-minded people, I never would have made it. Would I? You got to live without fear, right? Somebody says fear will not let love enter your heart. You got to replace fear with love. Hey, right? Replace fear with faith. The scriptures say now exists faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Hope. You gotta have hope. That's what I had. That's all I had was hope. Hope that it was going to turn around. It was going to change. Hope that I was going to survive. And I lived with hope for so long that I found, Timothy, that as long as I stayed focused on hope, I was fine. You know when I had fear? When I took my eyes off hope. That's when fear would enter in. But as long as I stayed focused on what I thought was supposed to be what I should have, I had no issues. So today I want you to go find your hope back. And replace your fear with hope. Have some hope in something. You have faith because you believe every time you get in your car, it's going to take you home. That's faith. On today's roadways in America, I don't know about that. Right? I kind of I have a cross and stuff and pray over everything and all that. I kid you not, especially now that my youngest daughter is driving. This is me. She made it. This is me furiously reaching for my phone to see if she's going to text that she made it. When she made it, I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I don't know how I love you. This morning, the child is getting in the car and I'm smelling her. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you smell like you just came out of my belly. You know, you smell like, and she's like, Mom. She's like, Mom, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay, breathe. I kid you not. Putting a child behind a wheel today, it takes some faith. That's hope for me. That she's going to come back home the way she left my little sweetheart. She doesn't think she's little. She's like, Mom, I'm going to college. But that's how a parent thinks, right? That's how a parent thinks. You live in a tall building, but you're scared of going into tall buildings. You know what you need to do? Go in a tall building. After the towers came down, everybody was like, I'm not going in no more tall building. Confront the fear. So there's some things that are inevitable. And so what? You got to live without the fear anyhow. You know, that morning, and I close on this, that morning when I had to leave my home, it was 5:10 a.m. and it was Florida. So, you know, the sun is up. It was November. So the sun is up, right? I feared that when I opened the garage, that the sound of the garage doors coming down, going up, would wake him up. I prayed that it wouldn't. I hoped he would not get in the car and drive me down by the time I got to the gate to get out, because we lived in a gated community. I feared that if I made it through that gate, I really don't know what's on the other side. I'm leaving behind security and safety and assurance. I really don't know what's on there. But you know what I found out once the gate opened? Oh my God, I'm free. I never have to come back. I never have to do with this. Oh my God, I put pedal to the metal. And every mile that I drove, I said, hallelujah, I'm done. I don't ever have to live like that again. I had to confront my worst fear to find out that there was a greater hope than fear. If that's your story, I pray for you that you will find hope in whatever you do and that your hope will replace fear. My name is Harriet Kemmick. Go to my website, harrietkemmick.com, as well as go to the ExodusFoundation.com. Be a blessing to us as we help others who are hopeless, bring hope to them, and bring them fearlessness instead of fear. Go to the ExodusFoundation.com. Right on the homepage, click, contribute, help us to help those who need it most. I love you. Thank you so much for being a part of my experience. have a good weekend. Have a safe Labor Day weekend, because on the other side comes football. So next Saturday, it will be football season. Oh my God, I can't wait. Football is here. Say football, football, football. It's going to be a great football season. Live without fear. Be blessed, everybody. Bye, everybody. Bye, Timothy. Bye, everybody. Bye. Thanks so much. Have a good weekend. Go out and live without fear. Right? Live without fear. Live without fear. It is worth it. It is worth it. It surely is. Thank you, Jesus. It is worth it. It is worth it.